Indigenous Australians are 3% of the population, but 28% of the prison population. Black people in the US are twice as likely to be unemployed, and 9 out of 10 police stops in 2018 were black or Latin. A cultural frontier is where two cultures meet, which leads to exchanges and clashes between the cultures based on their differences. It represents a dynamic process of cultural integration and conflict due to factors like tradition, beliefs, familial constructs, food, clothing, and gender roles.
Cultural frontiers in literature raises concerns about various issues including the representation and stereotypes of cultures, the power dynamics between cultures and the historical legacies of different cultures. This causes limited economic opportunities, health discrepancies between Aboriginal and Europeans, and cultural erosion. Perceiving Black Americans uniformly highlights systematic racism, prejudice, and inequality, fostering emotional vulnerability and physical damage as a result.
The final quarter takes the perspective of a skilled AFL player with many accolades, a Hall of Fame worthy career who is still being booed and taunted by not only fans but large figures in the AFL scene. This vitriol is purely because of the colour of his skin and vocal opposition to racial prejudice. The final quarter affirms racial prejudice and injustice resulting from the cultural frontier between Indigenous Australians and white Australians. The Indigenous people are still seen as second-class citizens even in today's modern era, where this display of white power and control is deeply rooted within Australian culture and is constantly brushed off as a joke or just a passing comment affirming the notion that it is okay to say things like this. Another tragic consequence of this clash of cultures is the identity crisis inherent within young Indigenous Australians, from not knowing what people they belong to and how to express their culture without being forced into suppression.
The Green Book effectively highlights the racial inequality and segregation faced by Dr. Donald Shirley through the use of various film techniques. Contrasting imagery is used to show the stark differences and power imbalances between white and coloured hotels, emphasizing the injustice and inequality that Black Americans experience. Close-up shots of Dr. Donald Shirley's face and the sound of doors slamming work together to convey the message that no matter how accomplished or wealthy a Black person may be, they are still subjected to discrimination and segregation, highlighting the futility of Black people's achievements and the impotence of education in not being able to leverage it for power.
The final quarter showcases the extent to which racist stereotypes are perpetuated throughout the mainstream media. In the final quarter, the director uses a combination of sound isolation and Eddie Maguire's own words and behaviour to reveal his racist beliefs. When Maguire's joke about Adam's goods falls flat, the director isolates the diegetic sound of the voices to reveal the awkwardness of the moment. The non-diegetic music quickly fades out, bringing all the viewers' attention to what Maguire was saying and how damaging it really was. The notion that Aboriginals are violent and aggressive collides with the idea that more Aboriginal representation in the mainstream media is needed to ameliorate the cultural frontier between Aboriginals and white people in the AFL, but also throughout Australia. This clashes with the perspective of Aboriginal Australians that a dedicated Indigenous round exists to demonstrate a show of pride and culture, rather than an aggressive attack towards anyone.
Similarly to the final quarter, racial stereotype of white superiority over Black people is displayed from the very start of the movie, as Tony arrives home to find his family having come over, and when asked why, they insinuate that they are there to protect Tony's wife so she is not raped or attacked by the Black tradesman, showcasing the discrimination that was eerily common throughout the whole country, but more specifically the South. This scene, once again, referring to the segregation that was present in the 60s, but is still deeply rooted in today's culture, not only in the US, but throughout the world. It greatly demonstrates the adversity that Black people are forced to face every day, based purely off the color of their skins. The director contrasts the scene of posh white people who are in a clean, fancy restaurant to a messy, rowdy bar full of Black people. This is symbolism of how each race is perceived and how the Black people are all seen as low socioeconomic class in comparison to the wealthy, rich white people.